what I've done is put together a presentation. Kyle had reached out because I had talked to him about a custom chat GPT that I put together that helped provide a summary of an analysis on investment property that I use to share opportunities with investors. So what I'm going to do today is just go through kind of what process I'm starting to follow. What I've done is I've put together just kind of a slideshow over high level analysis of how I kind of go about my flow of activity with investor clients. And then we can dive into a couple of examples. Looks like we've got quite a few people whose focus is specifically on working with investors and a few people who are interested in both. For clarification, I work with buyers, sellers, and investors, I think like most of you guys do. My focus is on working with investors. The reason I got into real estate to begin with really was I was wanting to learn more about investing so that way I could do investing for myself. But I think the focus on working with investors also for me is exciting. So that's kind of been my focus and something I'm starting to try and lean into. It is an initial lift, and there's, I think, a little bit more to learn up front because on top of having the normal process that you would go through as an agent, you're also now needing to be able to speak to investors in their own language, which definitely entails understanding some strategy and things like that. What this training today really is how can we utilize tools and provide high value to our investors? In summary, right? So the things that we need to know going into working with an investor is understanding them and their goals and what strategies they're looking to implement. So we want to have a good understanding of our investor. We want to be able to leverage tools to be able to provide a high value. And then the analysis that we're able to attain by utilizing some of these tools like DealCheck is how we can then provide a higher level of analysis and kind of act more as a consultant to these people by talking to them in alignment with their goals, not just for right now, but also for the future. And that is kind of dependent on what their strategy is, which is exactly why you need to understand the strategy. Once we've done this and this process starts to actually work and serve you guys as agents, then we can start to automate the process. And that is something for me that I'm working towards. It's not something that I have well established yet, but I'm kind of going to go into at the end what my plan is. So there are a variety of different investment strategies. There are a lot more of them than are listed here. They can be very simple or very complex, just depending on the person, their goals, their resources. I think the big ones that you guys are all coming across most likely are people who want to buy and hold real estate. They want to fix and flip. They want to buy and rehab or buy. So I'm not sure how often you guys are coming into this one, but the BRRRR strategy has been very popular over the last couple of years. I guess word going around that the BRRRR strategy is dead, but I have not found that to be the case talking with investors. And then the last one is house hacking. So going back saying we need to understand their goals and their strategies. Understanding their goals is going to help you understand what strategy is going to be a good fit for them. And if you're talking with an investor and that investor is a well-established person, they probably already know exactly what their goals are and they can articulate very specifically how much cash flow they're looking to earn on a deal or what equity position they want to be in at what time frame. But a lot of the newer investors, and I think this is going to apply to a lot of us, this is certainly my experience, we get these leads coming in from, say, like Bigger Pockets, and they're usually a newer investor because the more experienced investor probably already has an agent that they're working with. So we get a lot of people who are inbound leads, people who are wanting to get into real estate. So first step, just like with any other client, right, is understand what is their goal. I would say most, not all of them, but I hear things all the time like, I'm open to any goal. I just want to get into real estate. I'm open to any strategy. I want to put in $25,000 in cash flow positive. So I think a lot of the times these newer investors have unrealistic goals and they need to be consulted as to what strategy is going to work for them, and they might not know. Whereas the more experienced investor probably knows exactly what strategy they want to implement. And I would say based off of what type of investor that you're working with, you should also tailor your approach. We can I'll jump actually ahead real quick over to the lessons learned here, because a thing that I've taken away working with a variety of different investors over the course of this last year is experienced investors often don't think that they need you, and sometimes that might even be right. New investors are often very excited they're overly ambitious, easily overwhelmed, and often are totally clueless. And those are the ones where I'm talking about. They're saying, I've got $20,000. I want to buy a duplex and cash flow positive and buy on market using a VA loan. Or my most recent one is a guy who wants to put no money in and cash flow positive. That is very, very hard to come by in California. And I don't know if any of you guys have a market where that actually is something that would work, but that is not my market. And I know it's not your guys' market for any of you that are in the Bay Area. So our goal, my takeaway from speaking with them, is whether they're new or experienced, you want to provide as much value as you can very quickly. So that way the new investors feel like they need you to help them make a solid decision as to acquiring their first or second or third investment property. And the experienced investors, you need to wow them on a different level that makes them feel like they wish they'd brought you on a long time ago. Because I've also found that there are experienced investors who maybe got into real estate at a time when it was easier to find a good deal. They've made a substantial amount of profit, but they're still missing some pieces that we can guide them on and advise them to be more profitable or implement strategy that can help them make decisions with their current portfolio to increase their cash flow or whatever it is that aligns with their goals. That's when you start getting into the 1031 exchanges and things like that. So back over to the strategies, right? So really the things that we're looking at for the most part, most people are going to fall into these buckets. I would say the ones that I see the most are the buy and hold strategy, the fix and flip, and the house hacking. Understanding their goals and being able to pick out what is going to be a good strategy for the newer investor is going to make it much, much easier for you to start tailoring what properties you send to them. Like if somebody is wanting, they're a couple and they want to just keep their monthly expenses low and they're, wanting to get into something for a couple of years and really like their goal is to make a good initial real estate purchase that just sets them up for success later, that's a great candidate for house hacking. If their goal is to say like pass down a property to their children to help create stability for them, that's probably going to be a buy and hold. So you can start like just picking out those things from the conversations you have with people, particularly the new ones, to help build a strategy for them and make their lives a lot easier. Because I have also found if they're saying I'm open to doing whatever strategy, that just means they have no idea what is going to be a good fit for them yet. And they're looking to you to help them figure that out. So getting into the how to go about all these things, right? I think this first section, really the investment strategies, for the most part, we all know these things in that's a part of working with any buyer. You just need to understand their goals and their motivation. So what tools are we using or what tools am I using in this instance to help provide that value? ChatGPT, DealCheck, Google Sheets, and Follow Up Boss. And I'm going to go into each one of those things so that way you guys can see it, what I'm doing specifically. Actually, we can kind of dive into some of that now. And then at the very end, I'll go through an example of a couple of clients who I'm working with currently to help them get into something. So Follow Up Boss. So I'll give you a high level overview first of what I'm doing and how these things are being integrated. So what I'm doing is when I get a new client and I go and I gather that information from them about what their goals are, I put them all into a sheet. And I put them all into this sheet because as good as Follow Up Boss is at tracking ongoing conversations and sending text messages, automated emails, all those good things, what I can't do is see what each of these investors all want at the same time. So my goal was to make it very obvious. I want to be able to see all of my investors all at once and see what their strategies are. And then if they have any other particular metrics they're wanting to hit within that strategy, I'll add more details to it by filling out this section. And you can see like there's barely anything in here, right? And that's because most of them don't really have that information. And I also built that part out more recently. So, but what I'm doing is I find a new person, I input their data in here. They're also all in ChatGPT. If they have a company, which most investors, if that's what they're doing, I would say have an LLC in place. I want to go get a BRRRR in place with them because when I send them off market deals, I don't want them to just skip trace their contact information and go around me. you can sign on a business basically for a much longer term agreement than you can an individual. I think the individual is like 90 days, but for each one of these, I sign them up for 2 years. If they said that they want to start receiving off market deals, I say, okay, I'm going to send over a BRRRR. That way I can send you off markets and we're both protected. There's other information I want to know with these investors. Part of that is the short-term need to know information so I can find them property. But as you can see, like in this column here for partnership interest, I want to know, are they representing a company and they're basically like an acquisitions manager, or is this the actual investor? The other thing that I want to know is, are you interested in more partnerships later? Because if I find these new people who over time seem like they actually might be a decent fit to just pair up so they can get into something else, maybe I can get these people connected and present more opportunity to them. And then the other piece of it too is I'm dropping the carrot of, oh, you're interested in partnership. You don't know what you're doing. Well, I do. Do you want to talk about a future partnership together? And I just drop the carrot. And over time, as I have these conversations, I'm starting to find that people do want partnerships, which I think open up more opportunity for us as agents. We're already the subject matter expert. We're going to be providing them value along the way. I know a lot of us are interested in investing ourselves, so we might as well start having the conversation. I think another pattern I've noticed is every one of these people who's on this list that I've been communicating with that is investing at a high level, they don't do it all on their own. They have teammates. So you might as well establish yourself as the leader and with a lot of these newer investors for future opportunities. Actually, I almost think that out of everything on this could be the thing that ends up being the most valuable to me in the long run as I develop relationships with these people. All this information in the buy box section here is the information I need to know to be able to ensure I'm sending them deals that are going to be a good fit for them. And over time, as I gain more information, I continue to fill it out. One other thing here, if I don't have a BRRRR in place and I already kind of trust this person, I'll still send them an off-market deal, especially if they're newer, because they probably don't have the savvy to know they can go trace this information and just go around me if they wanted to. I haven't run into the issue yet, but it's also just an opportunity to touch base again and see what level of commitment people are willing to get to. That's the Google Sheet piece of it. That's how I track investors and their buy boxes. We'll get to the follow-up box one last. DealCheck. I think everybody here has some familiarity with DealCheck because we've kind of gone through it. Okay, and I do see we have some people who have no idea what DealCheck is. So we're going to dive into it. I'll show you how it's used. I won't go through it from scratch, but I'll walk through ones that I've already done when we get to the example page. But a summary of DealCheck, and I'll get it up real quick for those of you who are newer to DealCheck, and I'll just take one of the ones that we're going to use later. And let me see here. So, okay. So this one, I ran this property as a buy and hold, and that's because this was going to be for a client who was looking to house back. So the big value, I think, in this, right, is upfront. It takes very little time to put one of these analyses together. And I guess it would probably be better for the people who've never seen it to just see what it looks like from scratch, right? So to be able to run an analysis on this property, it doesn't take long. I'm just going to use a house that I know of. So if you've never seen this before, essentially what DealCheck allows you to do is run a financial analysis on a property, whether the strategy is going to be a rental, as in buy and hold, midterm, whatever it is. The BRRRR strategy, which is buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat, a fix and flip, or if you're wholesaling, that's really not going to apply to us, I wouldn't think. I think some of the biggest value that this tool provides, aside from the financial analysis as a whole, is it combines other tools. So that way it's kind of an all-in-one strategy that allows you to run both a customized, that allows you to run both a sales comp analysis and a rental comp analysis at the same time. And I have gone through and I've checked it against other sources like using Cloud CMA or just looking at sold properties on Zillow kind of a thing. And it's pretty good. I mean, it usually needs some tweaking, but you can go through and tweak it. And now you have a CMA and a rental analysis all in one. It's just much faster. And what we'll get into later is where a lot of the value lies here is going in and looking at the high-level analysis of the property so you can see what your cash flow would look like. And then also, I think particularly depending on their strategy, if it's going to be a BRRRR or buy and hold, what does the future look like for them? And we'll get into one of the case studies I'm referring to later to kind of dive into this further. But it provides a really nice report that you can send to people, and you can either send them this live version or you can send it to them in a PDF. Really nice way to differentiate yourself from most other agents who are using either a spreadsheet, which is very simple, and that's what I used forever until I found this. But I have found that using this, you can get way more in-depth information for long-term planning, because I have not yet seen somebody's sheet who does 20-year projections into the future. So you can see when would be a good time to exit, reinvest, do a 1031 exchange, whatever it's going to be. So that's what DealCheck is. Financial analysis tool, and it does sales comps and rental comps. The next tool that I use is ChatGPT, and I will run one of these live real quick so that way you can see. Everybody here is familiar with Follow Up Boss. I know that we're all now using Follow Up Boss. What I'm using it for with these investors specifically is a templated email and text messages. How I get that templated email and text messages is from ChatGPT. And the reason why is if I were to do that for each property that came and hit my inbox on a daily basis and come up with it, it would take way too long. I want the process, again, to be as quick as possible. Get as many deals as possible as you can in front of these investors. Give them the information that they need to know to be able to submit an offer, and let them start responding to you. You can dive deeper into it after that, but don't waste your time too long analyzing a property. They'll know. If it's a newer investor and you're working with them, then sure, spend a little bit more time up front, making sure that they understand, maybe schedule a follow-up call or meeting with them to walk through an analysis, help them get an understanding. But again, based off of one of my lessons learned with newer investors, do not dive too deep into strategy because they will get overwhelmed. I have made that mistake several times because I get super hyped about it and then I scare them off, and I've given them, it's too much information. Analysis paralysis. I think I'll just progress forward through this, and then once we get to the examples, I'll dive into how I actually would go about doing these things. So automating the process, right? So one of the things that you guys are going to find, I think if you're working primarily with investor clients, this has been my experience, is if they're looking, particularly if they're trying to fix and flip, on-market deals are a brutal place to spend your time for fix and flippers, because if there's a good enough deal that it actually would be close to penciling out as a fix and flip, you are facing an incredible amount of competition. I have spent with one of my investor clients, I think we've put in probably 20 to 25 offers. We have not gotten one yet because he's putting in the number that makes sense, which I would advise him to do, but it's going to pencil out better for somebody else. He's like a professional fix and flipper that has a team. They can do it cheaper and faster. So getting off-market deals to them is important. I'm sure you guys will also notice if you're speaking with investors that a lot of them only want off-market deals. So they only want to see you send them off-market deals. A good way to go about finding them is go on the Facebook Marketplace, go on the Craigslist, Google wholesalers, go find as many deals that look like they're for sale by owner as you possibly can, and reach out to them. And I think you'll often find that they're being sold by a wholesaler. But Facebook groups, you can find a whole bunch of wholesalers, sign up on their email list, and they will start sending you them. I have them now coming to, I just filter all of them so that way they each just fall into a bucket depending on the wholesaler. And you guys can even look up these wholesalers if you want to. But these wholesalers now send me all of their opportunities. They'll even follow up with me, and if they think one is a particularly good deal, and I'll make sure I get that one out to clients. This is what I will often be plugging into DealCheck to run an analysis on and send out to clients. Highly, highly recommend getting on as many wholesale lists as you can. It's a easy way to automate getting off-market deals. And then even at the very, very least, what you now have is the ability to tell any inbound lead or outbound client that you have off-market deals. And if now you have an excuse to keep following up with them to send them more opportunities. The next step for me in automating the process, aside from getting these off-market deals, is going to be getting a virtual assistant to run this process for me. And we'll get into exactly what that process looks like utilizing those tools here in just a second. We went through the lessons learned already and the examples here. Now we can actually run through and look at how these things all integrate. So first we'll look at Brittany the house hacker. This was an inbound lead. I believe Brittany was a Bigger Pockets lead. So here she is. She is wanting to house hack into but she wants to keep the property. So she wants to house hack, buy something, house hack it, and move out of it in a couple of years. They want to spend up to $650K. And because she's a house hacker, she's not looking to be cash flow positive. She's looking to keep her expenses at a certain limit, right? So this is the end output of what I had ChatGPT put together. So this one was actually an on-market deal. And what I did is I found this listing at 220 15th Street in Midtown Sacramento. And then I plugged it in. What I did is I found this on-market deal and I put it into this ChatGPT that I tailored to have give me a summary, and it spit out a summary for me. So I'll show you that first part. So we're kind of following in line with the process here. Actually, let's do this. Does anybody have any property that they're currently looking at for an investor? An address that they can give me?
Yeah, for sure.
What's the address?
Let's pull it up. Let's see. 3636 East Granite Street.
Okay, where's that one at?
Friant, California.
Friant? Did I spell that right?
Friant.
Okay. So what I did is I just input that initial address, and it's going to ask me, see, it still needs some tweaking. So what it's going to do is it's going to initially ask me what the strategy is. So, Daniel, for that property, does your client want it to be a fix and flip or
a buy and hold?
Okay, so then you can tell it. And I will just take what I'll do is now it knows it's a buy and hold, and we basically prompted it to give us a summary that would be relevant to somebody who wants to buy and hold real estate. Now we will plug it into DealCheck, which is now on this screen. Sorry, I got to bounce back and forth here for a second. This will be a buy and hold rental. We're going to start the process, 3636 East Granite and Frank. Search. We won't do all the tweaking to it to get it exact, just for the sake of time. Okay, let's say, I will add this one here. Just, is this going to be a conventional loan?
No, all cash, but you can do whatever you want.
Oh, that's fine. Let's do cash. Okay.
Yeah.
So
I just changed to 100. 100%. There you go. Yep, there you go.
All right, cool. And let's just go to the reports and sharing and download it. Okay, so now it's being downloaded, and we'll plug this in. Does your client have anything in particular that is super important to them on this one, or do they just generally want to find?
The cash flow has to be there. Hence the all cash, on that price point.
Okay. So now what I've told this thing to do is give me a Google Drive folder name. So that way I don't have to do it. That one's quick and easy, but give me a Google Drive folder name, because what I typically do, particularly with the off-market ones that I get from a wholesaler, is I'll put all of the information into a Google Drive that it has a shareable link, and then that will be included in the email. It gives me a text message and it gives me an email summary. I want it to be fairly generic, because when I send out these investor deals, for the most part, I'm not sending it out to one person. I'm sending it out to many people. So I wanted it to be very casual and not like nobody sends a text to somebody that they're having an ongoing conversation with that says, "Hi, Daniel, I just found a great off-market deal for you." That's just, I wanted it to be casual, look like, hey, I'm just shooting you over a text just so you know you got something in your email. Quick summary of it though, like this will generate about $3,300 a month, and you cap rate around 13.4%. And then more detail is going to be in the email summary. So now I have something to copy and paste. The other thing that I've had it do is, especially since I'm sending this out in bulk in the email, is I have found that people follow up in all sorts of different ways. I want them to follow up in a particular way, so that way I can quickly get the information needed out to the seller as well. So I include an offer instruction, and then this will just get replaced. Okay, so now we've got the stuff that I would copy and paste. And what I would do is go back over to Follow Up Boss, go into admin. There's email and text templates here. Do the email first, because the text message at the end of it says there's more details in your email, so I don't want to send that first. And then they go look for their email and send me back something saying that there's nothing there yet. So create a new email template, copy and paste it. You can save all these to a folder later, which I would recommend if more people start doing this, that we add a name to our folder so we can not just get lost. I would just name it the address so it's easy to find, copy and paste the whole thing in there. Any photos, if it's off market, I would save to the Google Drive. So that way when, and this has already been templated, so that way it'll automatically generate somebody's name, right? So it gives you a summary of all the financials, basically everything that they're going to need to know to make a decision, or at the very least know to follow back up with you. For the Google Drive folder, just copy and paste the link to the Google Drive if it was off market and you want to keep the photos there, as opposed to having all the details for the wholesaler. So again, they can go around you. I would just include that Google Drive folder here. So you save that, do the exact same thing for your text. Unfortunately, Follow Up Boss doesn't allow you to send bulk text, but what I would do is then go into your people. And what I've done is I've tagged all of my investors. So all of my investors are tagged. And now what I'm doing is I'm just going back and I'm referencing like, okay, this, I mean, in this instance, this is all cash, right? So cash flow is going to be awesome. Everybody wants it. But let's say that this one came in and you could buy it at this amount. I would go through and I'd see who this property seems like it'd be a good fit for. And based off of who it's a good fit for is who I would send it out to an email. Like if it's a wholesaler and I know the wholesaler will only accept cash and hard money and it's in Sacramento and it's a good fix and flip, I'm going to send it to all of those people if it meets their buy box. So then I just go through. I don't know if everybody's already used these features, but you can do bulk email really easily by batch. You can batch email this way. Texting is kind of a pain. I have found the faster way to text. If you click on it, it's a huge pain in the ass because you go into, but you can text from here. And once you send a text template once, it doesn't matter what it is. Once you send this text template once, if I hit send here, I'm not going to, because I don't want to send that to them, but and you go to the next one, it'll pop up with something at the top that says most recent or recently used template. So it is easy to just go through and click and keep going through each one of your investors and just like click template to send text. So what I do is I go through, I set up the file in my Google Drive with the shareable link. I create the email and text template. I send out all of the emails to everybody that it would be a good fit for. And then I go through and I send the text. What I learned the first time when I was going through, well, not the first time, like over many times of trying to work with investors, is if you treat them the same way that you do a residential buyer, particularly if they're looking in a very competitive space, you will spin your wheels for a long time and lose out on a lot of deals because it's just harder to compete as an investor, particularly again for fix and flippers. So finding a way to reach all of them in a voice that is casual but gives them all the information that they need via a text and email, I had pretty good results from it immediately. As soon as I started doing this, I started getting more responses. And what I have found out, particularly from the investors who are the savvier ones, they'll just send me over an offer pretty quickly. It makes it a lot easier to just at least get your foot in the door and start having the conversation and be the first one to the table. Does anybody have any questions on, or what questions do you guys have as far as this process goes with ChatGPT and utilizing DealCheck in the software?
What I would say, Alex, is, when you guys are doing these the analysis on these properties, you got to do them correctly, and there's a lot of stuff that is incorrect, so like basically property taxes change when the purchase price is different from when they bought it. So you have to calculate the new property taxes. You have to figure out exactly what expenses the tenants are currently paying for. So you have to dive deep into these analyses to get the actual numbers. And so if you want to focus on the bigger numbers, I mean, that's a good way to kind of start, so you don't have to work so hard. But it's a lot to get these analyses done.
100% agree with that. Like in this example, we just snagged something real quick, right? Like you would definitely need to do a little bit deeper of a dive for these properties. Normally I'm not grabbing something from the MLS. I'm grabbing something that has a summary of data that is given from a wholesaler. So what I'll go through and do is check on the ARV to make sure it's accurate. And I will definitely spend more time up front with this if I'm doing the full analysis through DealCheck. I don't always do that with DealCheck because of the time it would take to ensure that everything is accurate. Often what I'll do with the wholesale deals is just plug basically the information from the wholesaler directly into the ChatGPT. And then it will provide a summary that is much more vague just to see if people are interested in that deal or not. Then I'll go through and I'll do a more in-depth analysis on the property. A lot of the time what I'm finding is that it doesn't really matter what the asking price is, right? Like most investors are going to put in the offer price that makes sense to them based off of their goals. And that's really my objective. Or that's really more how I would go about it. I suppose the objective with using ChatGPT is to be able to just quickly provide a summary of the opportunity and send it out to people to keep a conversation going, particularly because a lot of these investors the savvier ones. They don't need an agent in the same way they need a deal to get in front of them. So I just want to keep feeding them deals on a regular basis. And I found that that's what'll get them to reach back out to me. Does anybody else have questions just on this process? I know there's a lot to unpack in here. So it's all like very high level overview. We're not really getting into the nitty gritty of any of it.
Where are you getting the novation lists and wholesale lists?
The wholesalers. So if you're wanting to find wholesalers, I would go on Facebook and look up groups.
Well, I found one. I met with them actually. I don't know if I'm crazy about the wholesale business, but I'd like to see what they see at least.
Yeah. So if you talk to one of their reps from a wholesale company and just ask to get put on their email list, they definitely will put you on there. Some of them will send you multiple emails a day. The way that I went about finding them really was like do Google search for wholesalers, go on Facebook groups and look for wholesalers. Even when I was looking on Craigslist and looking for properties sold by an individual, they turned out to be wholesalers a lot of the time. So they want to be found. I would say the place that I found them the most easily was looking for like off-market real estate in your area, right? Like on Facebook. And it'll just pop up with all these groups, and every listing in there for the most part is being sold by a wholesaler, whether or not the company names that or the group name says wholesale in it. That's been my experience. Yeah, that would be my advice on finding wholesalers. And honestly, if you guys want, like, go just these wholesalers here, you could just look these ones up here: Ace Properties, Fair Home Buyer, MRO Investments, New Western, maybe put in Wholesale, because I'm pretty sure that's also the name of another company. Pinpoint Offers. This one's local to me, but Zach Wholesale Houses. And I know there's a lot more. It's worth actually looking on a regular basis, because the ones that pop up the most often are the guys who get the most deals. But the guys who get the most deals also have the most people on their buyers list. So finding the ones that are just posting irregularly and, occasionally get a deal under their belt is really, I think, the better deals. And when I just go back through and I look at the wholesale list that I'm on, I mean, you can see here 50 unread emails from Pinpoint Offers, but only one from Zach Wholesale Houses. I've also found that the ones who I'm getting less inbound deals from are usually better deals.
I'm just wondering, I guess I've only tapped into wholesalers, not for a very long time, but when I did, they always wanted to have the end buyer. They wanted to cut you out, or they wanted, and of course you got to figure that out as a realtor, but do you find that that's the same case for you? And then also, how many deals have you done with this method?
What I have found with the wholesalers, I have heard they want to work with the end buyer. I have found that they want to work with the end buyer, but it just depends on, I think, my relationship with the investor. A lot of the times, if I've been working with an investor, the one who I had in here that I was going to dive into, but we're just pressed for time, Mark and I have a really good relationship to where he feels like if he gets a good deal and it's still better than what he would have gotten, he would be willing to pay my fee if they're not willing to. But honestly, I also haven't really ran into yet most of these wholesalers are unwilling to work with you as an agent. For the most part, I've actually gotten that a lot of the times they're working with agents, and that's who's bringing them the buyer. So I haven't had the exact same experience. It sounds like I have heard that, but I haven't had anybody say oh, we don't work with agents. As far as closing on deals using this strategy, it's been one so far.
What was that deal like?
What do you mean?
Maybe how did using this tool help you get the deal across the finish line?
When you say this tool, are you referring to ChatGPT, or are you referring to
your system that you're using, combining the ChatGPT with the DealCheck?
I think what it helped me with is getting it out to more people faster. And then because I'm getting it out to more people, I'm getting more responses. And because I'm getting more responses, I can tell who's more actually interested in doing something right now. And then I know who to dial in on a little bit faster. Or I guess give more attention to would probably be a better way to put that.
So basically, we're improving our efficiencies.
Essentially, yes. The goal with this is not for the ChatGPT's analysis to be the end-all be-all analysis by any means. I think to do that, you're going to need to do a lot more in-depth research, finding out exactly what the cost of repairs is going to be, and all of those things, depending on your investor, of course, because some of them are they find that all on their own. But no, you still definitely need to do your due diligence. It is more for increasing the efficiency of just having more information to give to more people faster, so that way you can do a deeper dive later for the ones who are actually interested. Because one of the problems that I was running into working with these investors is a lot of them want to see deals all the time, and they want to buy deals all the time. And if you're busy working with clients, it's really hard to keep up with the demand for buyers who are looking to, say, acquire several deals on a monthly basis. So I found this as a way of being able to get deals in front of them and open up the opportunity for them to work with me later.
Good problem to have.
Yeah. I think before I was just running into the issue of basically being overwhelmed with, here's this person wants way more than what I can realistically provide. I think we had a couple people saying this, that they're wanting to go deep instead of wide. And that's something that kind of starting to lean into, because I think it does provide value. And also, as we've all become busier and had a larger client base, it's harder to manage more people. I think for me, the investors who kind of want something all the time, this is a way to just provide something to them on a regular basis that has some value. It opens up some opportunity. So for the ones who are serious, you can go a little bit deeper with. Yeah, that's kind of my strategy. As far as like providing the like more consultative, higher, I guess, deeper value for people, that's when like, yeah, you really need to dial in and tailor this analysis to that person and their goals, and then go through and really take your time on the buy and hold projections and the property analysis to help them get an understanding as to, particularly for the new ones, like, is this going to meet your cash flow goal? Is this going to meet your monthly expenses goal? Is this going to give you enough equity to be able to turn around and sell it by the time that you want to, so you can do the next thing that you're wanting to do? But again, it's all totally subjective to each buyer.